Last Dance is the best Venom movie, but it's not perfect. And in this video, we'll show you why, without any spoilers. If you've seen any of the trailers, you already know how the story's gonna go. Eddie Brock is back in his universe after the events of No Way Home, and now everyone is after him. The police want him for the murder of Detective Patrick Mulligan. Meanwhile, some Area 51 soldiers are out to capture him so they can experiment on Venom. And to top it off, Null, the creator of the symbiotes and one of the most powerful beings in the Marvel universe, needs to catch Venom to break free from his prison.
This is heavy.
Venom has something inside him called a codex, which can act as a key to free this super evil villain. Since Null can't come to Earth, he sends some nasty bugs that chase Venom throughout the whole movie. This changes the dynamic we've seen in the previous films, because this story doesn't feel like just another adventure of Eddie Brock and Venom without any stakes. If these two get taken down by the bugs, the whole universe will be at Null's mercy. And trust me, this guy is an Avengers level threat. This might be the first time Sony didn't lie to us in the trailers. I was convinced they had thrown Null in with reshoots to trick fans into rushing to the theater, but it turns out Null appears in several scenes, has several lines of dialogue, and is pretty well adapted. His origin story is very similar to the comics. His design is faithful too, and they didn't nerf him.
Perfection.
I'm sure the typical superhero movie hater will say that The Last Dance feels like a teaser for an upcoming Sony movie that hasn't been announced yet, but it's not quite like that. There is a story to support the rest of the movie, beyond the mentions of Null. And if you were worried that Sony had lied with this scene like they did with Morbius, don't worry, this shot is in the final cut. It makes sense, and they explain it quite well. But let's talk about the story. The Last Dance has a more epic tone than the previous two films, but it still keeps the bromance dynamic between Eddie and Venom, something that some people really liked. Their interactions are fun, and there are some good jokes, but there's not as much humor as in the first movie. Since they're fugitives now, Eddie and Venom are not as relaxed as before, and you always get the feeling that they're in danger. There's more action, more tension, and some emotional scenes that weren't in Venom 1 or Venom 2. There are a few real tearjerker moments.
Gonna cry?
I have to applaud the whole team for humanizing the symbiote. It's a creature made entirely in CGI with super exaggerated features, but by the end of the movie, you grow attached to Venom. His relationship with Eddie is much better handled than the romance between the leads in any generic romantic comedy. To be honest, they work better than Arthur Fleck and Harley Quinn in Folie à Deux. And since we're talking about the special effects, that's one of the strongest parts of the movie. All the symbiotes have wild designs, but they don't look like they were made out of clay, like the characters from The Flash. Maybe the transformations from human to symbiote aren't the best in the world, but all the action scenes are great, and at no point does it feel like we're watching five guys standing in front of a green screen, like in some scenes from Quantumania. There's one scene where Null's CGI is a bit clunky, but I gotta give them credit for having daytime scenes where we can see Venom clearly. Not everything is hidden in the dark to cover up CGI, which I appreciate. Such a shame the final battle takes place at night. They really nailed the design of the Xenophage, the big bug that hunts Venom. It gave me Edge of Tomorrow vibes, with all those legs sticking out and its lightning fast movement. The creature doesn't have any dialogue, and its only purpose is to be super threatening, but it works. It's practically invincible, and since it's so different from Venom, in both looks and powers, all the fights feel fresh. In Venom 1, we had Venom fighting a meaner symbiote, and in Venom 2, we also had Venom fighting an even meaner symbiote. Plus, with those movies' not so great effects, the fights just ended up looking like two blobs of different colors going at each other. That's not the case here. Also, this creature has some of the most violent scenes in the movie. It rips people in half, eats them, and spits out their remains through the back of its head. At one point, I forgot the movie was rated PG-13. The violence is not as explicit as in Deadpool and Wolverine, which was rated R, but I don't know how they managed to get this rating approved. It's more violent than Venom 2, and we actually see some blood. Not much, sure, but there is blood. It's like Sony listened to all our complaints. They gave us a more serious, more epic story, with better effects, more varied action scenes, and toned down the humor. But I told you that this movie wasn't perfect. It has quite a few problems. The first one is that they couldn't decide how to use the character's powers. I know it sounds like a silly complaint, but it seemed like they were just making up abilities on the spot. At one point, we see the Xenophage use a sonic attack that instantly separates the symbiote from its host. You'd think it would use this move all the time, since it's always fighting symbiotes. And it's not like it needs to recharge like Godzilla's atomic breath, but it only uses this ability 3 times, because otherwise Venom would have been toast in the first 15 minutes.
That's just lazy writing.
Something similar happens with Venom's powers. In the third act, he suddenly pulls out a new ability out of nowhere. Sure, it's something he can do in the comics, but he'd never done it in the Sony universe before. If he had used that ability earlier, it would have saved us the whole movie. But hey, maybe I'm just being nitpicky. Maybe no one else cares that there are only 10 soldiers in a military base, or that it takes them half an hour to find a bazooka, or that these guys think using a revolver against a giant alien that can smash through walls is a solid plan, or that Chiwetel Ejiofor's character actually believes he can stop Venom with just 6 guys, even though we all saw Venom take out a whole squad of cops in the first movie. Maybe that's not a problem for you, but don't worry, because there are bigger issues. The second act is terrible. After all the action and epic moments of the first 40 minutes, we see Eddie at a camp, and Eddie in a van, and Eddie walking through Las Vegas, and Eddie at a casino. There are no action scenes. Venom doesn't appear. There's no character development, and it feels like we're watching a filler episode of a CW show. There are a few good jokes, but not enough to save a half-hour stretch that drags, because nothing happens.
Boring.
It's definitely not as unbearable to watch as Joker 2, but honestly, the hippies and Mrs. Chen felt completely unnecessary to me. They have no weight in the story, you don't grow attached to them, and they're there to make the movie more family-friendly than Venom 2, which had a more edgy tone. I don't mind the shift in tone, because Venom doesn't have to be R-rated. What really bothers me is how much time they make us waste. It feels like they knew how they wanted the movie to start and end, but ran out of time to figure out the middle, so they just threw something together. You could cut all the scenes from the second act, and it would make no difference. Well, actually, it would make the movie better.
If The Last Dance had been an hour and a half instead of 2 hours, it would be 10 times better. It would have had better pace, and they could have cut all the filler that no one wants to see. I could forgive all of this if the second act scenes served as development for Eddie or Venom, and the movie became a character study, but it's not that either.
That's a shame.
There's a moment when Eddie seems conflicted because he can't get over killing someone, and in another scene, we see him sad because he couldn't have kids with his ex. But these themes get mentioned once and then never come up again. It's like they brought in a different writer for the second act, with the condition that they couldn't add anything that would affect the rest of the movie. And there's one more problem: the characters. Venom and Eddie are great, but everyone else is super weak. The hippies who believe in aliens have no depth, and I've already forgotten all their names. There's a scientist who turns out to be important in the third act, but I don't even remember her name. She has zero backstory, except that she likes Christmas. Mulligan and his symbiote are completely wasted. I don't even know why they bothered to bring them back. And Mordo is the typical cliche of the angry military guy who will do whatever it takes to protect his country. And Dr. Payne doesn't work either. She's a scientist obsessed with aliens, which could have worked if we'd seen her interact with Venom, but that never happens. Not even once. The character is a carbon copy of the lead from Arrival, but with less screen time and zero development. At first, it looks like they're going to give her an interesting backstory because she's traumatized by her brother's death, but that goes nowhere. And to be frank, I couldn't care less. Maybe she could have been an interesting character if she had more scenes, but someone thought it was a better idea to have Rhys Ifans playing a hippie.
That is the dumbest idea you've ever had!
But if the second act is so bad, and I've been complaining for 5 minutes, why do I say it's the best Venom movie? Well, because the first and third acts are good, and I wasn't really a fan of Eddie and Venom making jokes every 2 minutes in the previous movies. The epic tone worked for me, the action scenes are good, and if you like symbiotes, you're going to see a lot of cool stuff that Sony didn't show in the trailers. The ending is also good. Even though it's not a perfect movie, it gives a satisfying closure to its main characters. Despite the filler in the second act, it doesn't feel like a waste of time, and you can tell the director and writers wanted to respect this version of Venom, unlike what happened with Joker 2. But if you were expecting the greatest cinematic masterpiece ever, or a movie with a solid script, this definitely won't be for you. That's why a lot of critics are bashing it. But if you like the previous 2 films, chances are you'll like this one too. And if you were hoping for more action and fewer jokes, maybe you'll also enjoy The Last Dance. And even if you don't like the movie, you have to admit that it's not going to be so bad that it sinks the entire studio that made it. That's what happened with Joker 2. We explained that mess in this video over here.
It's a mess. A big mess.